Well, welcome to the Boundary Review Committee. Due to the current COVID-19 regulations, today's meeting is going to be held using audio conferencing software and is available for the public to listen to via the link on the agenda page on our website or via the Council's YouTube channel. This ensures that all those interested in the proceedings can see and hear how decisions are made. Members and other participants should only speak when invited to do so by using the raise hand function. Likewise, will everybody please ensure that their microphone is on mute while they are not addressing the committee, and if you are addressing the committee, please could you ensure that your camera is on if possible. Anyone disrupting proceedings will have their microphone muted and may be removed from the meeting, but I shouldn't expect that here. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
No apologies, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Joe. And any declarations of interest? No. Brilliant. Thank you. Right. So we can move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Could I please get a proposer and a seconder that the minutes from the 8th of April 2021 meeting and the 19th of April 2021 meeting were both accurate representations? Thank you, Nigel, and thank you,
I wanted to query the minutes, but I'm not sure which bit I'm supposed to say that. So, but anyway. So
I see. Okay, well, we should probably address that first. So, Councillor Dugmore, would you like to?
Yeah, it states in the minutes that the main opposition supported a council size of 55. Perhaps I didn't make it clear, but what I was saying was that we should be considering, and we should be looking at the council size of 55. But the rest of the committee decided that we'd go 56. So it's quite an important point. I thought it would be better for us to be looking at an increase of only one, not two, and I would like that to be made clear in the report of the submission as well, because it's made it to the back page of the submission.
Okay, Anthea, would you like to respond to that?
Not a response, Chair. Just if Councillor Dugmore could just let me know which page of the minutes. Sorry.
Right, I've got the minute. I'll have to get back to you on the page of the minutes. I can tell you it's on on the original. It's on the back page of the draft submission. Just bear with me a second. I'll have to go into my other screen.
Happy to clarify that, Nigel. In terms of the finality of that, as your views are expressed tonight, no problem with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
That it's an increase, but you would prefer an increase of one. Am I correct?
No. When we were discussing what to look at, we were looking at we discussed keeping the same increase 53, 56, and I suggested 55 would be better because it would be closer to the median, and however it was the committee decided to go and look at to do a draft on 56. So.
Chair, can I just, they obviously ask us, Chair Nigel, as to whether it's a unanimous decision, and then they ask us another question as to whether we're likely to receive another submission, which helps them with their work. So I was simply trying to be clear with them as to how we went through the discussion at the committee, but I'm happy enough to reflect that you're not opposed to an increase, but you believe that 55 would be more preferable.
At that particular meeting, I wasn't opposed to an increase, but
okay,
still got to have this meeting.
Yes, of course, yeah, and I will change the submission to reflect that if we see that tonight.
Okay, so subject to those amendments to the meetings, are we happy to propose and second the minutes of those two meetings, please? May I receive a proposer and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Overton. And thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Dugmore, do you intend to keep your hand raised? Is there?
No, sorry.
No problem at all.
Trying to find the page on the minutes at the moment. So.
No worries. Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Blundell, did you have a point that you wanted to make?
No, I was just willing to second, but I got my hand up too slow on the second time.
Not to worry. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I think we're going to now move to the final submission of the local government Boundary Commission for England. I do not intend to move into the private session for this meeting unless councillors feel very strongly that they would like to go into detail in the document. So the questionnaire, for instance, that is referenced, the councillors' questionnaire, is out of the public domain. We can discuss it, but it's a confidential and iterative document. So unless councillors feel very strongly that they would like to go through this line by line and screen share, then I suggest we speak about it on a top level basis and go from there. But if there are strong feelings to the contrary, please make those known. Yes, Councillor Greenway. I think you're on mute at the moment. Sorry.
I was. Yeah, I think I'm really happy to hear that, because I mean, we've got to be as transparent as we can with this process, and particularly at this point, because I think that's how the Boundary Commission would view it. I mean, I'm quite happy not to delve in to identify anyone enough. I think percentages, etc., are self-explanatory, and I've looked through the number of links, and I don't think anything could be identified that route. So I would certainly welcome not excluding press and public.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, so I think we can open. I think at this juncture I'll invite officers if they'd like to make any comments before we discuss. Yes, Phil, sorry. Is it?
Yeah, in terms of the questionnaire, we've got 75% of those back, Chair. Brilliant. And with the committee's agreement, obviously, I expect that we could receive more tomorrow before the final submission goes in, if the committee would agree for those further submissions to be included. And it's now a case of trying to transpose that information generally.
Yeah, I would.
A good response, though.
Yeah, very well done to all those who were involved in making sure that members did respond in such a short period of time, because it was a difficult ask, and a 75% turnout so far is very good. However, I strongly support Phil's request that we allow for more data, because the more data we have, the better a picture of our borough and our members we can give to the Commission, which all stands to put us in good stead to get the best recommendations for our constituents as possible. So with your blessing, could we get a vote on that? Is anybody particularly unhappy with Phil adding recommendations? Brilliant. Okay, so we can carry that, I think. Thank you. I think have we lost Anthea for now, or is she back with us?
I'm still here, Chair. I just turned my camera off to help with bandwidth.
Not to worry.
But if I need to address the committee, Chair, I'll turn my camera back on.
Great, great. Right, sorry, just having a quick look through now. Great, so if we can have a look through, were there any particular areas that members wanted to raise? I mean, I will say firstly, thank you publicly to our officers for managing to put together what I believe to be a very strong draft at this stage in such a short amount of time. There are a few points that I could make and highlight, but I'd like to invite our committee to do so first if there are any particularly pressing things you would like to raise. Oh, okay, well, so one issue that I raised with officers was that it would be nice if we have the time to add some visual representation of the data that we have here. So, for instance, with the questionnaire of councillors and how we spend our time, it would be nice for a time-pressed officer at the other side of this to be able to see very clearly how our members are spending their time on various tasks. So perhaps that's something you agree with, perhaps that's something you disagree with. And there were other areas too, like looking at growth in the area and how that could be represented over time. Yes, Anthea, sorry, I've just seen your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the visual representation, we've certainly got the ability to, we've got the functionality to be able to do that. So if this committee would like to see some more visual representation within the submission, then time allowing, we'll we'll include some visual references to help with readability for future readers.
Yes, I must add the caveat that obviously officers have been working away to get this submission away in time, and I'm sure if we had the luxury of lots of time, then we could make a very visually beautiful document. But if there are some quick ways of representing some simple information as clearly as possible, I think that would be to our advantage. There were a couple of other bits. I think there was repetition on page 11 of 31, our cooperative values being underpinned by. On that page, I just felt that it was a little repetitious and perhaps the 2 points could be consolidated. I'm not sure if it was deliberate, but I felt like the ideas were quite similar on that page, so perhaps that could be condensed and we can do away with underpin being repeated. But I appreciate that this document has been put together very, very quickly. So
thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Members, please do come forward with your things, because I don't want to just be me speaking either. But the vision, I thought that could be clearer. There was a section talking about the vision of the council, and it appeared to be floating on its own, and I think it refers to cooperative values. But yes, Councillor Dugmore.
Yeah, it just really having it would be good to have a list of the minor amendments that were made between the two draft submissions, just to make sure that we haven't missed any, because obviously it's quite a long document. We've not had an awful lot of time to digest it and compare it, so it'd be quite useful if perhaps Phil could just go through what the changes that have been made from the one that we got yesterday.
If we track changes, okay. On that note, if councillors do make recommendations today, could these please be backed up by an email to Phil, just for the sake of clarity, so that we don't get lost in that way, because he's working to a very tight deadline, and anything we can do to facilitate this being done as easily as possible would be very helpful. The choice of person, by which I mean the subject of the sentence, page 13 of 31, we talk about the council was able because of our. So it's just a case of, it's stylistic, but it was just a case of either I'm a linguist, so the council is because it's a third person, or we as a council, and then we make that a third person plural. If that makes sense. Perhaps I'm being pernickety, forgive me if I am. It's just for the sake of readability. There's a nested clause, page 15 of 31, where we talk about driven by housing and growth. I wondered whether we might be able to unnest that clause and talk about the growth driving the thing, if you see what I mean, just so the sentence isn't broken up in the middle. If anybody needs clarification on what I am talking about, then I'm very happy to clarify. I thought it was a very good point, well made, on page 15 about grant funding and staffing levels, because that will affect us longer term. The greater the constraints on our budgets, the fewer staff available to councillors to help. It's not just the number of councillors, but also the support that those councillors get. And I know that I'm very grateful to our officers who have given me an enormous amount of support in my capacity as chair, and that will affect all of us in our various different roles. Yes, Councillor Overton.
Yeah, I did email some stuff in, but I can't see it being been added yet. Is that going to be added about the combined authority? Because I mean, we are a non-constituent member, which does take time, and it could grow. And also we have to have a duty to cooperate with them as well through the local plan. So, you know, that equates growth.
Richard, yes, yeah, that's very helpful. A lot of that came back through the questionnaire stuff in terms of councillors' other roles, which we hadn't tied everything on that together. So that's helpful, and that will be added, yes.
Thank you. Yes, it's not just the work that we're doing for our borough, in our borough, but how we represent our borough elsewhere. So that was very important, Councillor Overton, thank you. Right. Then I think that same page, there was a note of having regard to, perhaps instead taking into consideration, but again, stylistic. So that's up to you. Page 21, there was something saying there is currently have. So I thought perhaps there was something there that was meant to be cut, but
Yep.
stayed in. Then 22, the following page, something that said stronger safety communities. I didn't know whether that might be the nomenclature. I'm not sure. It just wasn't sure whether it was stronger, safer communities or so.
Yeah. It's the latter, yeah.
Anthea, thank you.
Chair, I was just going to confirm it is meant to be stronger, safer communities. So Phil's beat me to it.
Great, thank you. Sorry, forgive me if this isn't helpful. I'm sure that you would have doubtless picked these things up. It's just sometimes a second pair of eyes helps. And then the last thing was just visual representations for me. That's all from me. It was a really good document and a pleasure to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Nigel, in terms of what's different on the document, there's not a massive amount of difference. It's reflected the questionnaire responses at the stage yesterday, where we'd got to about, I think, just over 60% of those top line numbers. Like to do a little bit more work tomorrow to try and pull that together in terms of the meaningful statistics as more come in. Tidied up one or two parts where we got partial information, or where that information has now been taken out with a couple of I think you pointed out one where we hadn't got a date of time on that one, and some of the demographic stuff has been slightly added to as well. Other than that, then the conclusion has just been drawn together in terms of the numbers, where it's a recommendation for an increase of 2 councillors to 56. Now, there's parts of that, Nigel, you made the point about what was put in the last paragraph. Obviously, those elements are subject to change dependent on what is said and agreed tonight. I think one of the things the Commission have asked me to say is, do I believe there'll be another submission because they will approach it in a slightly different way? I said, I don't know. I said, it's possible. If I do find out, I will let you know that.
Great. Councillor Dugmore, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. Well, if you can make that amendment to the conclusion, that'll be great. And if you can send it over to me, I'll sort of just make sure that that I'm happy with it. Yep. I mean, overall, as far as putting another submission in, yes, we will be putting a submission in. They are aware of that because I've already spoken to them. So
that's fine.
And just to clarify on some of the data. I mean, the thing is that as pointed out, I was a bit dubious about 56, an increase of 56 anyway. And to be perfectly honest, there's no convincing argument I can find to warrant that. I mean, even with the increase in the number of electors that using the figures that are in there, will still be below the median for comparative authorities, and therefore, basically, what are we? If we require 56, and comparative authorities don't require 50, wouldn't require 56 for this size of population. Well, then, what are we doing that is, different to everybody else? So I think that's the crux of it. And so therefore, I mean, I won't be supporting an increase to 56 because, as I say, I just don't see any convincing argument for it.
Phil, did you want to reply, or can I move to other members?
I'm happy to reply. I think the only thing I would say, Nigel, is that in terms of the community leadership and engagement, the submission basically takes that as being the key factor in terms of the way councillors operate here. I accept that you may not agree with that proposal, but I believe that it's a unique situation, and the Commission have made clear that one size does not fit all. It will depend on how your authority functions, and they expect us to make a submission on the basis of those strengths, etc., and what fits best for that particular council. But accept that you may not agree, but I mean that's the way we're going.
Thank you, Councillor McClemens.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little bit surprised, I suppose, on sort of why just one down when I think from the recommendation of the Boundary Review Committee of 56, it's just I think we all thought 54 would be okay, but I think once we saw the evidence, I think it was just absolutely apparent, that actually that increase of over 8,000 electors to 2027. Plus, I think we've got to remember that it's beyond that. We are a growing town, so you're making those decisions now. And, come 2027, when our town has increased more, you may be coming back to us saying, oh, I wish we'd increased it to 56. And looking at our workload as well, I think, I haven't seen, obviously, the questionnaires. I think it'll be apparent the increase of the workload of councillors. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McClements. Councillor Overton.
Yeah, I'm a bit shocked by Nigel's comments, because I know he's trying to alter what he said. I mean, he did say about an increase to 55 being looked at first, so he doesn't agree with an increase. But the issue you've got is that you're talking about these comparative councils. They may be comparative on size and issues, but they may not be comparative on issues. We have some of the most deprived wards in this town. We have neglect left from the new town that was quickly built and has given us more challenges that we don't get any funding from government to deliver for. And the poverty and the issues that we have in some of these wards are challenging. And a lot of them are represented by Labour councillors who have a lot of casework from these wards. And maybe in Muxton you don't get much casework, Nigel, and you think that it might not grow that much. But unfortunately, we have a lot of casework to deal with. We have a lot of issues to deal with, and we're trying to do the best for our residents. And I feel that, dividing communities based on sticking to 54 or slightly amending wards up to 55 will not give the residents the best representation in this borough, and some of the key issues that we have to deliver for our residents won't be addressed. And I find it shocking that you've waited till now to then say you're going to do another submission yourself.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. I think that's an important point, and one that I would have explored as well. I was heartened initially to see that members were all in agreement, despite our various different political positions, that an increase was needed so that we can best represent our borough. Nigel, like you, I am a stickler when it comes to figures and fairness and representation. But like Councillor Overton, I agree that there may be an issue in the idea of median council, because we're anything but average when it comes to those who we represent, when it comes to the way that we represent them. We have some of the most deprived boroughs in, any given 10%. We're in the upper quartiles of deprivation, and as Councillor Overton rightly pointed out, and we're delivering some of the most outstanding services despite cut after cut after cut. So while we do need to look at averages, I think we're defying the law of averages a lot of the time. Would you like to reply, Councillor Duggan?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I'm a bit of a scientist, so I have to look at the facts and gather the evidence. Now, the thing is, it might be because we've got a growing population, it might be gut feeling, oh yes, of course we do need new councillors, but we do need an increase in the number of councillors. But once you've crunched the figures and you've had a look and you've seen how we're operating, well then, as I say, it's just not convincing enough for me. So I'm sorry, I can't support it.
Thank you. Councillor Greenaway.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was probably 3 meetings ago now. We know that there's obviously going to be a growth, and I think this obviously is a movement. I just wanted to re-clarify the point that fair enough, this is a submission. The number is 56 that's been chosen based on the, I suppose, built-in expansion without having to come back to this. However, I would have been happier, I think, putting it in a middle figure, personally. But I just wanted to make sure that we know this submission put by the council is not set in stone. I'm sure Phil referred to this probably over the last 2 meetings, that ultimately that decision obviously will be based on this going into the commission, but they will be looking around at how best to I suppose split the wards or do whatever they need to do for representation. I just wanted to clarify, because I personally don't feel comfortable. We're all asked to do more for less. Officers have been asked to do more for less, and we've got to also bear in mind that. So it's a huge balance, really, isn't it? So I just wanted to ask for that clarification again, please, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Councillor Greenaway. Phil, would you like to reply?
Yes, Chair. So just to take Jane through what happens next, assuming we agree this evening on what the council submission is, we put that submission through. They will then make a consideration of our submission, and they will decide whether it has merit. They will come back on the 18th of May. Jane, they'll give us a number then. That might be whatever their decision is. It could be what is proposed by the council. It may not be. At that point, they reserve the right then, when they start to make the warding arrangements, to go plus or minus possibly 1 seat if they find that creates any issues at that stage. So you're totally right. It isn't set in stone at the moment. This is the council's submission, and they do make that warning that it's subject to minor change when they come to make warding arrangements to fit a pattern of wards that matches the number that's been selected. So the 18th of May, they'll make a decision, they'll notify us, and we'll move on to the second stage, which I think from the 25th of May, they will start a consultation on warding arrangements. And I'll be talking to colleagues in Democratic Services for us to set up meetings along slightly prior to that timeline, I guess, and along that timeline for us to then go through the next stage, dependent on our answer.
Yeah, yes, thank you. If I could, Chair. I think it helps also. Obviously, the meeting's been live streamed. I think viewers need to understand that process as well as I do, and it's not a bad thing to reiterate the position.
No, thank you, Councillor Greenaway. I think that is important, and if a member, even within this committee, needs reminding, then the public certainly will. So thank you. I think that's an important contribution. Councillor Holt, sorry, you've been waiting very patiently. Oh, you've muted now.
I muted myself again, yes. Thanks, Chair, I don't mind waiting. It is just a quick one. I just wanted to add my backing to the raising the number by 2, simply because as a new councillor, I've only just completed about 2nd year, I'm finding the workload quite a lot, and as a full-time worker as well, there's a lot of extra work on your plate in your spare time. And if we are to encourage younger councillors who have got full-time or nearly full-time jobs, then I think the extra people to share the load would be better, I think. And thinking about how, I like the idea of future-proofing, because I know that Telford is growing and will grow. And if we take into consideration, like, not urban myths, but urban rumours that other areas would like to join, then we might grow even more. So I'm in support of the raising by 2.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. I think that's a good point, well made. A while ago, before I became a councillor, there was a piece in the news about young councillors across all political parties suffering with their mental health because the demands are extreme. If you have a full-time career, if you have family, if you have caring responsibilities, it is very hard. There's a reason why the median demographic, if we're going to look at medians today, for councillors is middle-aged white men called John. Which is fine and great, but if we wish to have greater diversity, we need to make sure that the resourcing is available to support a plurality of voices and different experiences. So I think a good point, well made. Thank you, Councillor Blundell. Thank you. Sorry again, waiting patiently.
No, that's fine, and I agree with your comments about making sure that we have a diverse council, especially as a woman, and if you're childbearing age, when you've got the responsibilities of looking after children as well as obviously fathers are saying, but having a diverse council is very important. And bearing in mind we're also currently at roughly just under 180,000 population, projected by 2031 almost an extra 20,000 people, to make sure that we are future proofing to provide a good service for all residents. We do need to look at the numbers, and I think if I remember rightly the median was 55.5, and as we can't have a half, then rounding up would make 56 a viable figure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Blundell. Councillor Overton.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, I think the other issue that we can't forget is, you know, adding in the growth, adding in the oh God, I've lost you there. Adding in the growth means that you know, some communities, if you stick to 54 or even maybe look at 55, you will see parts of some communities being moved around into other communities that have no fit. And that's unfair, really. If you live in a certain area and you identify with that area and you want a councillor to represent that area, it's unfair that you add somewhere from somewhere else in just because we have to meet the number criteria or we'll be out of the 10%. And, you know, with the growth that we've got predicted, as the submission says, you know, future proofing that, because we know we'll still be expanding after that timetable, you know, is good, because, you know, it is hard, as Vanessa said, if you're a full-time worker and you're a councillor, if you're a part-time worker and you're a councillor, and we don't want you to be all retired white men being a councillors and not really representing the communities they represent, you know, and that's why we need to make sure that being a councillor, you know, we all do it because, you know, we want to do the best for our communities, but we need to make sure that we are representative of our communities. And, you know, and where I live, they're not all white men who are retired.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Overton. I think that's another good point as well. Telford's a particularly special place to live because it's a new town built on the shoulders of some very old communities, very old venerable communities. And I think the point that you make, Councillor Overton, is something that, for instance, affects Councillor Greenaway's area right now. There's a lot of change and growth and thrust, and you go from an ancient hamlet community to one of very, very high growth, somewhere that was a moor suddenly a very dense population housing area. So these are the kinds of changes that we're seeing across the borough and things that need to be reflected. Brilliant. Are there further comments? I think we've had some interesting exchanges here, and I think it's been largely respectfully done, so thank you, members. Great. Okay, well, I think if we are happy with our discussion, and thank you everyone for your contributions, I think it'd be good to move to the recommendation of the draft as it stands, allowing for changes to be made as necessary. So if we could move for approval of the draft with delegated authority in consultation with officers and with me as the chair, I would be grateful. Sorry, is that Anthea, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of clarity, so that members are clear what is being approved, should it be approved. I would suggest that the resolution should be words to the effect of that the committee approves the draft as presented this evening, subject to any amendments that have been mentioned, with authority delegated to me as the Associate Director in consultation with you as the Chair to make any final amendments before the submission, provided that those final amendments don't conflict with the substance of the draft that you've seen this evening.
Thank you very much, Anthea. And this is why you're a lawyer. Thank you very much. Councillor McClements.
Yeah, I'd just like to move, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. Brilliant. So can we take a vote then by raising hands, if that's okay? Brilliant, thank you. Right, has everybody raised their hand who wishes to? Great, thank you.
Chair, that's 5 in favour.
Thank you very much, members. Brilliant, so that is carried. And a further recommendation, if we may, that members are happy for Phil to add to and edit the questionnaire document as responses come in for the completeness of data, if that's okay. If I could get a mover and a seconder for that, I'd be grateful.
Chair, just before we move on to that, I wonder if we could just take against and abstention as well, just for clarity.
Sure, no problem. Yes, okay. May I please get a vote for abstentions? Thank you. And those voting against the recommendation this evening, please. Thank you, members.
So that's 5 in favour, 2 against, Chair, so that is carried.
Thank you. Right, great. So if I could repeat then, another caller. So if I could please get members to move and second that the questionnaire can be added to and edited by Phil in this intervening time period prior to the submission, just so we have completeness of data. Thank you, Councillor McClements. Thank you, Councillor Overton. And can I get hands raised, please, in favour? Thank you, colleagues. Great. Councillor Dugmore, are you against that? Is that?
No, I'll abstain because it would be ridiculous to vote against something that's not approved anyway. So, wouldn't it?
All right, thank you.
So, Chair, that's 6 in favour and 1 abstention, so that also is carried.
Brilliant, thank you. Right. Well, I think that concludes business, unless there are further points from members.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for another good meeting. Joseph, if we could please get dates for our next meeting, that would be very helpful.
Currently, there are no other dates. The officers will work on this following on from this meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Anthea.
Chair, just in terms of that, just for the benefit of the committee, so we'll, after this has been submitted to the Boundary Commission for England, I should say the Local Government Boundary Commission for England, we'll need to wait for them to come back with their decision on council numbers. So what we're anticipating that to arrive mid-May. So what we're proposing to do is put a couple of dates in the diary for early June, and we may cancel one if we haven't received the response back from the Boundary Commission in time for that first meeting. So we'll get in touch with members to get those dates in the diary, and then we'll follow those up with subsequent meetings to help us through progress through stage 2 of the process.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you, members, for your time, both inside and outside of this meeting. It is appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Mm-hmm. Cheers.